here we go.
Welcome to the 9 Route Fantasy Football Podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the 9 Route Fantasy Football Podcast. Pat and Scott are here in the afterglow with one more game to go in week number 3. Time is flying already. We have the New York Football Giants against the Dallas Cowboys yet to be played on Monday night. Obviously, a lot of folks are going to have some players involved on both teams, definitely. But definitely a lot of those Dallas Cowboy offensive pieces are maybe going to get you a win this week. We'll see what happens. Giants have been playing pretty good D. So best of luck to everybody tonight that is living on the edge going into Monday Night Football. I know we are, again, we're in week 3. The waiver wire is starting to fill up. Injuries we're going to talk about. There's a lot going on. I know one good thing. Welcome back to home for you, Pat. You finally made it back this weekend, right? And you get to record from home for the first time in 2 weeks. So welcome back, pal.
Yeah, thanks. I feel like I was never gone from the podcast because that's, we still get to do this. Luckily, either way. But yeah, it's nice to get back and see my family again and actually get to watch the games on, my TV and where I was at. We had just regular basic cable. So it was like whatever games are on, the national channels I got to see, but didn't get to watch Red Zone, which I especially like to do when the Eagles are not playing in the 1 o'clock hour, because when the Birds are on, that's pretty much, that kind of stays on the TV. But when they play, later in the day or play one of those primetime games, I usually like to watch Red Zone so I can get an idea of everything that's going on all at once and, catch all the big plays and, stuff like that. So it was nice to get back and get into that a little bit at least and get to watch Red Zone. We'll get to watch our Eagles dismantle the Washington Commanders as well from home, which was very nice.
Yeah, dismantle. That's one way of putting it. I was busy at work, and I know somebody. It was not long after 1 o'clock, and they mentioned there were already 4 sacks of Carson Wentz. I was like, oh my God, there it is. And so yeah, they definitely look like a force to be reckoned with. I know Vegas is kind of aligning with them being the NFC favorites, and right now, I can't say that there's any team out there that looks like they're really, really going to give them a hard time. The division games are always tough, so there's 6 no matter what. But you made short work of Washington once. Dallas, maybe you catch. And again, the Giants look to go 3-0 tonight, but they'd be the worst 3-0 team in football if they are going to win tonight. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Other than that, I don't know. You want to dive in or talk about our email, website, and social media?
Yeah, we'll throw that out there real quick for everybody. If they want to follow us on social media, we are both on Twitter at the 9Route1 and at Scott from Delco. We do have a website. It's all official looking and whatnot. That is www.the9routeFFB.com. And our email address, again, if you want to get in touch with the show, if you'd like to, hear anything specific on the show, if you'd like us to talk about a specific player, what our opinions are on, certain guys or whatever, feel free to email us at the9routeFFB@gmail.com. Yeah, so basically what we're going to do today is same thing we did the last 2 weeks. We're just going to give you a quick little rundown of some injuries that have happened in week 3 that may affect your lineups moving forward, and then shoot into our waiver wire pickups and then give you a quick rundown of our starts and sits. So I guess without further ado, let's jump into the news.
Time for the news.
It's not looking good for some of these players. You might have them on your team as we speak. Now, I know some people felt like Mac Jones was going to take a little bit of a leap, but it was going to be tough. People weren't expecting a ton out of the New England Patriots this season compared to the rest of that division with Buffalo, Miami, obviously definite offensive powerhouses, and we saw them both on display yesterday, respectively, in their game. But there was a pretty tough injury to Mac Jones. It looked worse than they're currently saying, where it's a high ankle sprain, not a break, so to speak, of the ankle, which obviously would be probably season ending on that level. We know the high ankle sprains for those of us that dealt with Christian McCaffreys of the world and other players, that they are tricky. It really depends, certain levels of pain tolerance. There's definitely going to be healing process that's going to happen. I'm sure that once, Bill always keeps it close to the vest, but once he has to spill the beans on an injury report, you'll really see what the timetable is going to be for him, at least on the surface. That would lead to Brian Hoyer, who is probably, I think he's 107 years old. He is the definitive backup, but they do have rookie Bailey Zapp that was drafted in the 4th round this year. And there's always a chance that somebody like that could be thrown into the fire, so to speak. Obviously, Mac Jones got the ball rolling as a rookie. Bailey Zapp out of Western Kentucky had pretty amazing numbers in his season in 2021. He threw for almost 6,000 yards. Now, again, not playing against the cream of the crop in college, but that's still pretty decent. And he had pretty solid measurables. And quietly, he was a nice depth pick, developmental quarterback and things like that. Threw for 62 touchdowns. So these are things that could transfer over. You do see some of these guys that just have that ability no matter what. If he comes into play, it might be interesting. I definitely wouldn't maybe roster Brian Hoyer, but keep an eye on Bailey Zapp, especially if it seems like there's going to be a long-term Mac Jones out of commission. Dynasty, obviously, most people probably already have him on the radar, but wouldn't hurt to maybe, just if you have that spot, just hang on to him for a second. But it is a shame Mac Jones doesn't look too good for this season for 2022.
Yeah, another quarterback that got injured on Sunday was Tua Tagovailoa. Did go out briefly for that game. Did come back and finish the game, and the Dolphins, pulled off I wouldn't necessarily call it an upset. I guess they were underdogs in that game, Vegas wise, but 2-0 going into the game, as well as the Bills. And Dolphins defense just played out of their minds. But Tua had a little bit of a back injury, and they're calling it a head injury. It looked like he was checked for a concussion, past the concussion protocols to come back into the game. So hopefully, as long as symptoms don't arise over the week, he won't go back into that concussion protocol. As far as the back, doesn't seem like a major injury. He should be okay to play this Sunday. Just a matter of probably just pain management and again, making sure that he doesn't fall back into any of those concussion symptoms. Well,
next up, another player who he gets injured, but he does seem to thrive with injuries. So it's going to be interesting to see. But Dalvin Cook had a little bit of a shoulder issue. He has had those in the past. I remember having him, I want to say it was last season. I'm pretty sure he had a bad shoulder. And
missed the game.
And then it was the Pittsburgh Thursday night game. Came back and everybody was like, "Oh, drop him! He's not going to do anything." And I left him in, and I had a little, financial stuff going on the side too with that game and that. And man, if he didn't have a ridiculously monster game, it was awesome. But hopefully, hopefully that shoulder is just like they're saying, day to day, and something that he can manage with pain, wearing the brace. And, I'm sure they'll limit him a little bit. Obviously, they have a lot of offensive weapons. There's a certain handcuff that will be mentioned down the road in the waiver wire. But definitely with Dalvin Cook, right now, it doesn't look to be quite as serious as things might be for, again, like a Mac Jones or anybody like that. That upper body stuff is a lot more pain management than the legs, where that really just takes away somebody's mobility, hence their livelihood for a couple of weeks. So you never know. Again, he could be a last minute, but if you don't see him as doubtful, if he's questionable and above, he'll play. Limited capacity probably to certain extents, but definitely is somebody that you want to look at, based on that. Just keep up with the news and see what they say about the shoulder for Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, I think week 3 was the week for big name running backs to go down. Big name running backs that start with the letter D, I guess, for whatever reason. It was a bad week to be a D. David Montgomery also injured in the game against the Texans. It was an ankle and a knee. They're still getting information as far as what exactly happened, what part of the leg he hurt. Speculation now is, could be an MCL or a PCL, something that could keep him out for a little bit of time. He is expected to miss at least 1 week. That's just that's just preliminary. You have to make sure that you stay plugged into what's going on in the fantasy world to, keep an eye on these injuries later on in the week and make sure that, if you do have any of these guys on your roster, that you're not playing them, obviously, if they're not going to start, or if they're going to be limited in any capacity where their workload is going to be diminished, then, you might want to look in another direction. And we're going to, like I said, like Scott said earlier, we're going to get into guys you can pick up off of the waiver wire to sort of backfill those running backs that are injured on your team.
Correct. And finishing off the third D of running backs that is a little banged up, DeAndre Swift. Nothing new there. He does. He's a smaller back. He's not a big power back, but he's definitely that dual threat. I know somebody mentioned him in one of our leagues as kind of like a CMC light, so to speak. And the irony of injuries sometimes does roll with that too. Again, catching the passes out of the backfield, running between the tackles, and making plays. He had also a shoulder injury. His seems like it might have a little more something to it. So it sounds like that, according to Dan Campbell, some news that came out was that they may sit him for 2 weeks, and then he would have a third week off going into their bye week and come back October 23rd against Dallas. That, again, still remains to be seen. There's nothing official yet. That's another one where you're going to keep an eye on injury reports and see once you see a doubtful or an out, they could just rule them out directly or come out with a statement just to make it official that they're going to do that. Again, they do have some depth there a little bit that will be mentioned again as we get into waiver wire stuff. And again, these guys that we're talking about that are hurt right now, the last three gentlemen of Dalvin Cook, David Montgomery, and DeAndre Swift, when it comes to their backups or their handcuffs, a lot of people do roster them. The thing to check out, especially, if you're in a dynasty league, again, they're going to be on somebody's team. That's probably a no-brainer. But if you're in a 10, 12 team league with some green players and people that don't mind dropping people to try to get the fresh face off the waiver wire, thinking they don't need somebody that we're going to mention or could be floating around out there. So definitely keep the antenna up, and you might be able to get a steal for a couple weeks there.
Yeah, one more running back we're going to mention in the injury news, Joe Mixon.
Another running back. Oh, yeah. God.
And all these guys were drafted in probably your top, maybe Montgomery was going a little bit later, 4th, 5th round, but all these other guys were first, back of the first, top of the 2nd round guys. So, a lot of fantasy lineups probably suffered this week when some of these guys went out. Although Cook had a decent game before he got injured. Swift and Mixon sort of, kind of left a little to be desired on the point side of it. But Mixon was just dealing with some ankle soreness after the game. He should be fine. Nothing to worry about. I know if you had him in your lineup and were a little disappointed in the production, that it's just one of those things where, injuries are going to happen during a game. And, I had him on a roster and he let me down and I lost that league and it sucks, but part of the game, you know what I mean? You got to work through injuries, but Mixon should be back in the lineup in week 4 and shouldn't really have any issues. May miss some practice this week. They'll probably give him some rest, but I don't see him missing any time or even really being limited in any way, come week 4.
Moving on, finally getting away from the running backs, and thank goodness there weren't too many more there. We are looking at the wide receiver position. First name up, and this just came across as we were getting set up and ready to go, finishing up our notes, that Jalen Guyton, it looks to be a torn ACL yesterday during the game. That's going to be it for Jalen Guyton's season. That is very unfortunate. Very good young receiver with a lot of promise. Had a nice year last year. Obviously, that offense has already taken some hits. Keenan Allen. Again, now you're talking Jalen Guyton. We know Justin Herbert is trying to gut it out with some some busted ribs and didn't look horrible, but definitely didn't look quite as Justin Herbert-ish as he coulda, woulda, shoulda. But again, Jacksonville is actually a very good team now with a real coach, a good defense, and a good offense. But Jalen Guyton, as of yesterday, he had 2 catches for 64 yards on 3 targets, a 54-yarder. He definitely was one of those guys that could be a nice flex for you. But unfortunately, his season's over, depending on how your leagues work, if you do keepers and stuff like that. Probably worthy of the IR slot, just with the focal points on that offense that he could be somebody if you want to carry him over or anything like that, let alone if you're in a deeper league or anything like that. But again, we will discuss options for filling in that blank if he was a flex player on your team. Maybe you're not sure if you have enough guys going, but a shame Jalen Guyton done for the year.
Yeah, these last guys on here, I'm going to kind of just hit them together. Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry both left the game against Carolina after halftime, a little bit later in the game. Michael Thomas was a toe injury. Jarvis Landry was an ankle injury. Neither of them seem to be major injuries. Both look like they're going to be on track to play next week. I know if you had Chris Olave on your fantasy team, and I did face Olave this week, I was not happy about these 2 injuries in the middle of the game because Olave blew up and put up 147 yards on 9 receptions once these guys went. Now he was catching passes before these guys got injured, but once they both went out, I think Jameis Winston didn't realize that there were 9 other guys on offense. It was just him and Olave, out in the backyard, father-son football toss. Like it was crazy. But yeah, these guys, Thomas and Landry, should both be back next week, and Olave will still be good, but probably won't get as many targets.
Yeah, just to add, I personally was fading Michael Thomas from the beginning of the season. Hopefully this isn't another, him milking injuries. Like you said, they'd probably be okay. But honestly, I think Olave is the best receiver on the team.
I think by the end of the season, he definitely will be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the youth, and I know coming out of Ohio State, a lot of people felt he was the most polished route running and just in a sense maybe the most complete guy, but didn't have the chops. And him and Garrett Wilson played on the same team, so he was the higher rated guy, so to speak, and obviously did go ahead of him slightly in the draft. Drake London was also up there, but yeah, Pat, sorry to hear that. I had him on bench him on one of my teams that luckily I didn't need him on, but yeah, definitely I think that's a player to keep your eye on as well.
All right, so let's jump into the waiver wire. If you have any of these injured players on your roster, you may be looking for somebody to replace them. You may also just be looking for an upgrade to some of the players that you have now who maybe just are not performing, to the level that you would like. So we're gonna hit these in kind of an order. We have them listed by position, but the way I'm looking at them, this is kind of the order that I would pick them up in most cases.
Weekly waiver wire.
First and foremost for me is Khalil Herbert. You obviously saw what he did after Montgomery went down in that game. I think Herbert is one of those guys who he's just so talented, and unfortunately the Bears, are kind of committed to David Montgomery. Montgomery's a good back too. It's not, I don't think that Herbert is, head and shoulders better than Montgomery, but when he gets his opportunity, he takes advantage of it pretty much every time. Went for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns on 20 carries. Also caught 2 of 2 targets for 12 yards. He's just a guy that, it's strange. He's in one of these positions where he's so good that they have to give him the ball even when Montgomery's healthy. Like Khalil Herbert still gets his, 4, 5, 6 carries a game. But if Montgomery's not available, I think Herbert actually becomes a better start for your team than Montgomery even would have been if he was healthy, because he doesn't have to share the workload with anybody. It's literally going to be him as the only running back in the backfield. They may spell him here and there, just to kind of get him a breather, but they're not actively trying to work in other running backs when Montgomery's out, because they know how good Herbert is. So I think that, if you have an opportunity to pick up Herbert, I would do it. I would even hold on to him, even if Montgomery does come back and play this week, or if he comes back and plays in future weeks. I would keep Herbert on my bench because he has that potential to just immediately become a must-start running back if anything happens to David Montgomery.
Another guy we talked about, Dalvin Cook. His handcuff or backup, however you look at it, is Alexander Madison. Is well known in fantasy circles as being that guy. Sometimes Dalvin Cook had some injury issues, and Madison has always been there again in a similar fashion, sometimes just as explosive to come off the bench or to be that guy to spell Dalvin Cook. Now, you might see that happen a little bit until Dalvin Cook is 100%, where Madison will get a little bit more than he had been getting. Just taking a look so far this season, looks like he was averaging about 6 carries a game, albeit getting 4.2 yards a carry. Already has a rushing touchdown, picked that up yesterday, and was getting about 2 targets a game. Now, again, stuff like that will increase. There's a good chance that if Cook has an issue with the shoulder, depending on his pain tolerance and things like that, let alone just the running duties, it is one thing. But obviously in the pass game, sometimes you're in there for pass protection. So sometimes with that shoulder extension, depending on what he's like with stuff, you might see Madison on the field just that much more, and then could turn into some check down action. We've seen him in the past where Alexander Madison can definitely be a guy. He can win your week for you. We've seen that happen in the past. So currently, he has nice numbers in our league of record. He's top 45, I believe, going into Monday Night Football. But at the same time, you might see his value tick up for a couple weeks. And if Cook can't go one week and he's your starter, that's a nice position to be in with that Minnesota Vikings offense.
Jamal Williams is another guy that you can pick up and should pick up. Again, we spoke about DeAndre Swift's injury a few minutes ago. Williams is a guy who had a role on that team even when Swift was completely healthy. But with this news that Dan Campbell is saying that it might be good for Swift to sit out a couple weeks, get himself back to 100%. If that ends up being the case and that ends up being the route that Detroit goes with their star running back, Jamal Williams is in line for just a huge workload. There are some other guys on the roster there that have done some things that will probably get involved, but Williams was already the goal line back. So he's the guy that's in there, when they get inside the 5, which is already a high priority, high value role. Add in there now that he's going to be getting a lot of the carries, between the 20s. It only brings up his value that much more. Again, you may see some guys like, we saw like Craig Reynolds last year or the year before have a couple of good games. Detroit's offense is, I think, one of the best in the league. I mean, statistically, it shows that they can put points on the board. They have to tighten their defense up a little bit, but again, these are the types of, I think we mentioned last week, these are the types of players that you want. You want guys on good offenses that don't have really good defenses, because it forces the offense to have to keep scoring and keep throwing the ball and keep their foot on the gas for the entire game. And that's the easiest way to rack up fantasy points. So if Jamal Williams is available on your waiver wire, again, he's probably not in most leagues, but if he is available on your waiver wire, he's a guy that you need to go out and get on your roster right away, because again, if Swift misses any time, Williams instantly becomes a top 15 running back every week that Swift is out.
Another wide receiver that is of interest this week is, and he should be on your team. For some of you people might be dodging him now after the Washington Commanders' performance this past week. I understand where some people might be a little gun shy, but Curtis Samuel has been having a pretty solid season so far. He leads his team in targets, in receptions, and yardage. That's again an offense going into this week that was fairly highly powered with Carson Wentz at quarterback, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and he share those starting duties on the wide receiving core. Just taking a look for him in our league of record, he's like top 12 wide receiver right now going into Monday night. Doesn't get a ton of yards, but is making things happen again with reception. So again, PPR, obviously, if you were in a standard league, it'd be a little bit different. He's only got 2 touchdowns so far this year, but he is a player to watch. He is fifth in total receptions amongst wide receivers currently in the league, again, going into Monday Night Football. So if he gets a couple more touchdowns, gets a little bit of yardage, that would definitely add to it. He does have one fumble on the season, but again, definitely a worthy pickup to either have on your bench. And right now, he'd be a pretty solid flex start for your fantasy team if you're looking to pick up the pieces from one of the injuries we talked about.
Yeah, another guy having a surprisingly good year is Arizona wide receiver Greg Dortch. 23 targets.
Watch your language, Pat. Come on.
23 targets so far in 3 games, 20 receptions on those 23 targets, which is, that's an outstanding catch percentage. Not really a down the field guy, but if you're in a PPR league, I'd rather have 20 receptions than 10 receptions for, maybe 50 or so more yards. So only averaging 7.7 targets per game. But like I said, is turning those targets into catches every chance he gets. Now, obviously, DeAndre Hopkins will come back. Rondell Moore will eventually come back. So Greg Dortch is one of those guys who I wouldn't go out and fight for. He's not one of the top guys on my list, but he is a guy who, especially if you need something to get you through this next week coming up, or again, whether you have some injuries or some players that are underperforming on your roster, he's a guy who every week has just been a solid PPR option. So again, he's not somebody who I think is some like crown jewel that you found and you're going to be able to ride him to a fantasy championship, but he's a usable, serviceable piece to get you through the next couple of weeks until Hopkins and Rondell Moore get back.
Zay Jones, second on the team in targets, first in receptions, concentrated targets in Jacksonville. He is really kind of stepping up. He had a nice finish to the 2021 season for the Las Vegas Raiders and then signed a free agent contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are currently one of the nicer looking offenses in the league. Doug Peterson has really turned that team around. Trevor Lawrence looks like the number 1 overall pick that he was just a few seasons back. And that whole offense, James Robinson seems healthy again. Christian Kirk and whatnot are really playing well. Again, have they faced killer competition? We'll see. Yesterday, Zay Jones went off 10 catches on 11 targets, 85 yards and a touchdown. And he led his team, obviously, against the Chargers, who have been known to have a pretty good pass rush and a good secondary overall, but they shredded them. Jaguars won 38-10. Right now, again, in our league of records, Zay Jones is outscoring the following wide receivers: Tyler Boyd, Deebo Samuel, Mike Williams, T. Higgins, just to name a few, DK Metcalf. So, again, some of these guys you think are a bit of a fluke. And again, they may come back down to earth a little bit here and there, certain games. But to get somebody like that on your roster, who definitely would be worthy of, if he keeps this up, would be worthy of a flex spot is an understatement. So Zay Jones is definitely worth a pickup. And, again, maybe a stash, maybe your team's that strong, but he could definitely be starting on a lot of rosters right now, 10 and 12 team leagues easily.
Yeah, another guy that you could potentially pick up, again, this isn't somebody who I'm running out to grab off of the waiver wire or anything like that, but definitely somebody who is showing that he's a little bit more valuable than, what we had probably placed on him in, preseason or draft season, if that's what you want to call it. Ben Skowronek from the Los Angeles Rams. He started on the team in targets behind only, obviously, Cooper Kupp and, strangely, Tyler Higbee, but has more targets, more receptions, more yards than Allen Robinson. And, I know it's one of those things where him and Stafford have, already played together and Robinson is new to the team. So, yeah, there's a possibility that Robinson sort of overtakes that wide receiver 2 role on the team. But right now it's Skowronek. He's the wide receiver 2, and he's one of those guys who he gets a lot of those deep targets. So if you play in any of these leagues where I know I play in a league where if you have, I think it's 15 or more yards per reception, you get a bonus at the end of the game. So Skowronek's one of those guys who doesn't catch a ton of passes, but when he does, they're deep ones, and a lot of times they're for touchdowns. So He doesn't have any touchdowns yet this year, but he's a guy who in the little bit of usage that he gets, he's usually a big play target for the Rams. So he's a guy that, again, you could throw him on your bench, and you could do worse. There are definitely players on some of my benches right now that I would much rather have Skoranek other than those players. So he will definitely be an ad for me this week, and probably a little bit lower on the waiver priority, but definitely a guy that I'm looking to put on some benches in a lot of my leagues, honestly.
Moving off of wide receivers on the waiver wire, we're going to talk about a couple of tight ends real quick. First up is Ty Conklin of the New York Football Jets, formerly of the Vikings. Had been a little bit of a blip on the radar with the Vikings, but moved on this season and currently is just kind of crushing it, folks. Our league of record right now, he is the number 3 tight end. Obviously, still got one game to play. Amongst tight ends in the league, just amongst tight ends, he is 3rd in yak yards with 100 even. So he's not just your old school Zach Ertz, catch the ball, turn around, fall down, and get points and yardage that way. He is doing very well right now. Obviously, Joe Flacco is the quarterback, and that offense may see a little bit of a regime change if and when they move off of him and get back to Zach Wilson. Obviously, they didn't do too well yesterday against the Bengals. They only put up 12 points. Flacco had a rough game, 2 picks, no touchdowns, and got sacked 4 times. It wasn't pretty. The Bengals were coming for him, to say the least. But yesterday, Tyler Conklin, for instance, you say, how did he do? 8 catches, 8 targets, 84 yards, averaged 10.5 yards a catch. He had a 21-yard reception. He's not a one-trick pony. So, again, on the tight end position, he's somebody who is starting to make his way into, fantasy discussions on a little bit more of a legit level. Now, will that continue on if and or when they do move off of Flacco, which probably would be shortly as long as Zach Wilson's able to play? True. Maybe you would see a little bit of a change there. But for right now, they have some offensive weapons on that team. They have Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Elijah Moore, Michael Carter, Corey Davis. We've seen them all play. But Tyler Conklin right now is just that guy. And again, he's a tight end that is definitely should be starting for your team. If he's still out there, God forbid, please go get him. And don't even hesitate. Get him on your roster.
Tyler Higbee from the Rams. We just talked a little bit about Skoranek being the most targeted wide receiver. Tyler Higbee is actually the 2nd most targeted player on the team behind only Cooper Kupp, and is actually 3rd amongst all tight ends in targets, tied with Tyler Conklin, strangely enough. Higbee's had a pretty good season so far. He hasn't caught any touchdowns yet, but 16 receptions for 171 yards. You could do worse at the tight end position. There's definitely guys out there who were drafted well ahead of Tyler Higbee that are doing worse at the tight end position. So he's a guy that, again, he's not a guy you're going to pick up and just feel like, all right, I'm set at the tight end position now. But he is a guy who, in good matchups, could be particularly useful and could be a good streaming option to the tight end position.
And just one little nugget here at the end when it comes to the waiver wire, for those of you that may be looking to stash somebody for down the road and you say, who's out there maybe looking for quarterbacks. Obviously, there'll be injuries are always around, and maybe you have that extra roster spot. 1st-round draft pick, Kenny Pickett of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm kind of thinking it's going to be almost any day now. There's reports that they're already a little frustrated with the offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, in Pittsburgh, that they're not really looking like a solid team. We saw the Thursday night game against Cleveland, and it's always a tough one. Cleveland, the division game, and those defenses and playing, low scoring, grinded out, running back, heavy type games. But looking around at his numbers, he's just really not been that good. Mitchell Trubisky, the quarterback that he would be replacing, Kenny Pickett, I think, would be the better option. Trubisky leads the league in bad throws with 21, 2nd in total percentage on that. Meanwhile, when it comes to, you say, oh, that offensive line is so bad. he just, he just doesn't have time to throw. He actually hasn't been under pressure all that much. He's actually 20th overall in pressure percentage. So he really hasn't been, running for his life, so to speak. He seems a little indecisive. Again, now you're on your third team in 3 years? Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of change. You were the golden boy there in Chicago for a few minutes, and then things fell apart with that offense. You went to Buffalo, backed up Josh Allen, and a lot of people thought that Trubisky would be a guy to turn things around this time and basically be given the maybe keys to the kingdom, so to speak. Obviously, Mike Tomlin said, we'll sit Pickett all season. But maybe enough fan backlash and the owners say, hey, look, we drafted the kid first. We gave this guy a shot. We'll see what happens. So I think Kenny Pickett might be worthy of a bench spot if you have the ability to do that, because I think any day now he could become, the starter, maybe in a week or two, if things continue to be tough for that passing offense overall for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think once he gets on the field, he may have some bumps in the road, but I know in the preseason, he kind of surprised a lot of people who weren't too high on him. So, just my 2 cents, keep Kenny Pickett on your radar.
Yeah, agreed. I think especially for guys like me, again, who drafted Trey Lance everywhere, you're looking for a guy who can, not just be a quarterback 10 to 15 every week. You want a guy who could potentially come in and truly, explode and be a good fantasy option. And right now you kind of already know with the starting quarterbacks that are out there who those guys are, and most of them are taken. So grabbing a guy like Kenny Pickett, sticking him on your bench in the hopes that when he does finally get his opportunity, he blows up and becomes maybe a top 8 or a top 5 option, because they do have a ton of weapons in Pittsburgh. I mean, a bunch of good receivers, a good pass catching running back out of the backfield, a good pass catching tight end. So there's a setup there for Kenny Pickett to come right in and, throw 2.5, 3 touchdowns a game to those options. So, I think that's a great idea to pick up Kenny Pickett now and hope that he ends up being a difference maker for you.
Yeah, just Trubisky, it's just, if he's not getting it done, he'll be the guy to fall. And again, it'll be a shame, because he did look like he had a little bit of something there for the 2018 season until the double doink game. And then after that, it just kind of fell apart for him.
Eagles stole his juice, huh?
Yeah. They definitely did. They
stole Carson Wentz's yesterday too. So,
man, nah, that was. You should have called the cops.
You felt bad. You felt bad, didn't you? You were like,
again, I like Wentz. I'm not going to lie, I like Wentz, but I didn't want him to have a good game against us. But talk about kicking a guy when he's down. There's
well, that's because they were putting him down, and then
he was like Michelangelo. He did most of his work from his back. So. What are you going to do?
Oh, goodness. All right. Let's move into our start sits. You are going to take the honors this week because I totally pooped the bed. Let's put it this way. You still have another player to go, and you've already beat me so far in week 2. So, week 3, excuse me. Yeah. In week 3. So you have the honors of going through your starts first.
Well, thank you, sir. Yeah, I had a reasonable week so far in fantasy, so I might as well top it off with the head-to-head.
Start sits.
First up, quarterback. Again, not pushing all in on this one, but had a nice game. Nice, decent game, I guess you want to call it. They won, so and if a quarterback leads a team to a win, we'll kind of take it. But Marcus Mariota, I know people are going to laugh like, yeah, dude, are you serious? Not that you maybe want to full bore start him, but he's got some potential in this game to maybe do a little bit of damage. The Cleveland Browns that he is going up against, they're giving up about 24 points a game. They're, that definitely shows that they're willing and able to give up points when it comes down to it. That being said, when it comes to, passing yards overall, they're right around like 240. So it's not the worst. It's not the best, but it's kind of like an average, so to speak. And I think that you're starting to see things come together. Drake London's been pretty strong since the beginning of the season. Obviously, Kyle Pitts had his Kyle Pitts breakout game finally for me and all those other people that have been big fans. Cordarrelle Patterson had a nice game out of the backfield. I only had one catch, but hey, you know what? That's all you need. I kind of feel like Mariota is going to be one of those guys by the end of the year who is startable. He's not going to win you games here and there, but he might have a good shot this week. And I'm going to go out on a limb because some of the other matchups are a little lopsided. But I think Marcus Mariota might have a decent game this week. So maybe get you around 20 points, which is roughly what they're kind of giving up. And throughout the season, Mariota, he's had some turnovers. He's had 3 picks, 3 fumbles lost. If you gave him those points back, albeit 12 total based off of turnovers in most of the -2 leagues per those turnovers, he would go from 15th to 12th in our league of record per se. So again, that kind of shows that he's got top 12 potential. He's just got to take care of the football. So I like Mariota a little bit this week. My next guy is Khalil Herbert. I think that him against the New York Giants on a short week definitely has some legit potential. The Giants have a pretty solid defense so far this season, as far as we've seen in the passing game. Now, when it comes to them against the run, they're giving up 119 yards a game. We just saw what Khalil Herbert did against coming off the bench, yesterday in his game, and really kind of again pushed himself to the forefront. David Montgomery has the potential to be out and or limited. We already kind of talked about that. So if that's the case, and you see that obviously Montgomery's out for a week and Herbert has been, again, a very effective running back, even going back to last season, filling in for him. I think he's not only startable, but I think, again, playing the Giants on that short week is definitely going to be beneficial to him. And I think that he's definitely going to be, I think he's got single digit potential for running back again this week. And again, that'd be the only bright spot for that Chicago Bears offense. Going to go with another hot hand. We just talked about him based on the injuries that are Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry. Chris Olave against the Minnesota Vikings this week. I feel like he's the best wide receiver on that football team. And Pat, I know you joked, but you kind of said, yeah, by the end of the season, you think that's definitely got the potential to prove itself through and through. The Minnesota Vikings right now are the 4th worst in giving up yardage in the passing game, 275, almost 276 a game in the passing game. So we've seen that Saints offense still with Jameis Winston at the helm. You still got Kamara and if somewhat functional Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry. Olave's shown that he can be guaranteed to be a go-to guy on that offense. I think he's definitely got top 20 potential this week, especially if the other two are limited or if any of them missed the entire game on that level. I mean, you even saw Traquan Smith have a decent game also in that backup concept. So again, Jameis Winston's leading that team. I like Chris Olave this week against the Minnesota Vikings. My next one this is mine and mine alone. Could be 100% wrong. And I know that there's touchdown dependency here currently based off of one game, but
most tight ends, that's the way it rolls anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be Travis Kelce and Zach Ertz's of the world and stuff like that. Jelani Woods of the Indianapolis Colts. I was so high on this guy, 6'7", 253, freak athlete. He had been a quarterback at one point coming out of college. A lot of potential there with the Indianapolis Colts. People felt like you had a pretty good shot with Matt Ryan there to kind of get him a little bit acclimated to the way things go. Tennessee is a little bit tough against the tight end position as far as, points allowed and things like that. But coming off of 2 receptions for 2 touchdowns, and we noticed this in the preseason too, where he is just that big of a target. Obviously would be, useful to blocking the goal line situations, but to know that he has that much potential to just get those quick points for you. And that would be all you need. There's not too much there at a tight end position. You're either going to get a guy that's going to score you, your Mark Andrews, who's getting you darn near, 20 points a game, to get the season started and stuff like that. But to see a guy like this come on board and already make, in our league of record, make the first page. He's the 25th ranked tight end right now based off of, 2 touchdown catches for 13 yards. But that's fine. We talk about touchdowns and things like that when you're talking about Robert Tonyan, Dawson Knox. But these are all guys that usually have some legitimacy based off of that. I just kind of like them, and I'm going to ride them this week and see if they are smart enough to push ahead to find Jelani Woods. I think Matt Ryan's going to look for him in those goal-to-go situations. Finally, the Green Bay Packers. They would be my defense to start this week against the New England Patriots. Yeah, right now, New England is they're putting up some yardage, so they kind of look like a decent football team to an extent. Total yards 365, which is pretty good offensive numbers. But they are 25th in points per game with just over 16 points a game. And a Bill Belichick team is usually pretty good with the football. This team's been pretty sloppy. The New England Patriots are a -4 in the turnover battle, going up against the Green Bay Packers that are only giving up about 15 points a game. They are 7th in total defense right now in the NFL going into Monday night. Again, we've seen them kind of keep them in games with that offense still kind of getting a little bit acclimated to new wide receiver core and Aaron Rodgers and whatnot. So I definitely feel like with the Mac Jones injury, whether it is the rookie Bailey Zapp or Brian Hoyer, the veteran, that's going to be one of those games where they're probably going to try to ball control, keep it out of Aaron Rodgers' hands. Just almost have one of those grinded out games. I can't see them putting up crazy numbers. I think that defense is going to feast this week on the New England Patriots. So I would start the Green Bay Packers in all my leagues.
Yeah, I actually almost had Ramondre Stevenson as my start for running back because I agree. I think the Patriots, Bill Belichick is a smart coach, and he's going to want to do everything he can to keep this as low scoring as possible, knowing that his defense is what he's going to have to rely on to win a game against the Packers. So I do agree. For my start at the quarterback position, again, you talked about Mariota. I'm going to talk a little bit about Jacoby Brissett. Again, these are not guys that we're like telling you, hey, you need to go out and grab these guys off the waiver wire and start them this week. These are guys who, again, if you had a Trey Lance, if you drafted Russell Wilson and you see how he's kind of looking so far this year and he's making you nervous. Here's a guy that you can go out and get that for at least a week can hold you over until you find maybe a more steady replacement. But Jacoby Brissett gets Atlanta this week, and if you're looking for, again, like I said, a streaming option or even like DFS, he's probably super cheap on like DraftKings and FanDuel and all that stuff. Brissett's a pretty good bet. He's going up against the Falcons, who just allowed 325 yards and 2 touchdowns to Geno Smith. I mean, Atlanta's statistically one of the worst passing defenses in the league through the first 3 weeks. And Brissett has also been really good at finding his receivers for the first few weeks. So he threw 2 touchdowns against a pretty tough Steelers D. I mean, even without even without Watt in the lineup, the Steelers defense is still pretty tough. And Brissett had a good game on Thursday night. So he now has 4 touchdowns on the season versus only 1 interception. So again, he's not a guy who is taking a bunch of risks and a lot of chances and is going to lose you points. So, if he can put 2 touchdowns on the board and 250 or so yards, I mean, you're looking at, 18 to 20 points in your fantasy league. And I think that's definitely it's more than Russell Wilson got you last week. So, he's a solid option if you lost your QB or, again, you're looking to stream someone. At the running back position, I'm going to go with Dameon Pierce to start versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Pierce has officially fully taken over the backfield in Houston, and he'll probably be an every week start from here on out for me. Probably a guy I won't mention in this segment anymore, but I wanted to make sure I gave him some love this week because I did tell you all to sit him this past week, which was obviously the wrong call. Sorry about that. But this week against the Chargers D, that is the 5th worst at giving up fantasy points to the running back position, and they just got shell-shocked by the Jags. And James Robinson ran for over 100 yards and a touchdown. So I think Pierce is a good start in that position. The Texans are also, like we talked about a little bit with the Patriots, are going to want to slow this game down. They're going to want to sort of follow the example that the Jaguars set. Now, the Jaguars got out to a big lead, which is why they were able to run a little bit more. But I think in order to keep Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense off of the field, which is truly their strength, I think that the Texans are going to want to run the ball and want to control the clock as much as possible. So I can see Dameon Pierce getting a ton of opportunities against one of the league's worst run defenses. Start of the week at wide receiver is going to be Gabe Davis versus the Baltimore Ravens. Davis was quiet this week versus Miami, only catching 3 passes on 6 targets for 37 yards. But the Dolphins defense did a really good job at keeping the Bills' best weapons at bay. Now, Baltimore, on the other hand, they haven't been good at keeping any weapons at bay at all anywhere in the entire league. The Ravens have given up the most yards through the air in the league, the second most touchdowns, and they have the 7th highest yards per completion against them. They're scoring a ton of points, which is why they're winning games, but their defense is just leaking left and right. The Bills were also shut down this week a little bit versus Miami, so I think they're going to come out with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder and kind of looking to show people that they're still one of the top offenses in the league. And I actually kind of feel bad for the Ravens defense because I just feel like they're running into a buzzsaw at this point. They're already a tough, having a tough go of it. And now they have to go against the Bills, who just, looked pretty anemic versus the Dolphins. So, and I think with Lamar Jackson on the other side, I think this is probably going to be the highest scoring game of the week. So I am interested in playing all my Bills and all my Ravens players for this one. At tight end, I'm going to stick with that Atlanta-Cleveland game and go with David Njoku. Njoku crushed it in week 3, ended up being the tight end 2 on the week so far with one game still to go. And he gets the Falcons, who are the second worst versus the tight end in fantasy points allowed so far this year. I already kind of badmouthed Atlanta's defense earlier, so I'm not going to do that again. As you can see, I do like the Browns passing options against a pretty Swiss cheesy Atlanta defense. My start of the week at defense is going to be the Miami Dolphins. This is kind of a 2-parter for me. Number one, the Dolphins just held one of the best defenses in the league to 17 offensive points. Obviously they had 19 because they got the safety on the old butt punt there. But also, the Bengals' offensive line woes have not improved from last season. In fact, Burrow is actually on pace to be sacked 5 times this season, which would beat the NFL record of 72 set by David Carr with the Texans back in 2002. I don't know if you remember that, but it seemed like, speaking of Michelangelo and being on your back, David Carr was that guy. That guy had he should have brought a blanket with him so he could just cover himself up every time because he was laying down so much. But Cincinnati also has not been nearly as good at putting up points despite their sacks. Burrow was getting sacked a lot, but the Bengals were, he was making up for it with big plays, and those plays have not happened for them this year. They were, I think, also tied for the 6th most turnovers in the league. They have six turnovers in 3 games. So if you're telling me I'm going to get basically 5 sacks right off the bat with the opportunity for 2 or more turnovers, based on the averages looking at for my fantasy defense, you're looking at 9 points right there. I will definitely take that as a start, and then obviously anything else they do on top of that as well. So that is my starts for this week. What about sits? Who are you not liking this week?
Again, situationally, obviously, is how fantasy football is played, and coming off a best game of his career. Trevor Lawrence, again, the Chargers, as of last year, look like they have one of the best secondaries in the league. This year, right now they're going through some things, and obviously that transferred over. We've seen this team for the Jacksonville Jaguars look very well coached. Offensively, seem to be clicking. They have a good defense. Speaking of a good defense, they are playing the Philadelphia Eagles this week. The Eagles are really good against the quarterback. Obviously, last week, or yesterday, last week, but whatever. You're looking at 9 sacks against Carson Wentz. Now, is that going to happen again? No. But right now on the season, they have 12 sacks on the season. I can't imagine a team that is only giving up 11 points in fantasy football to the quarterback position to slip too much further than that. So for the sake of a touchdown, even if it's 16 points, he's definitely not going to be a guy that's going to repeat last week. Again, the Eagles only give up 186 yards a game to the passing game. So all signs point to no for Trevor Lawrence. Doug Peterson's homecoming to the Link. It's definitely going to be an emotional game. And obviously with the Eagles front office, they kind of have an idea of their mindset when it comes to what Doug likes to run. So I think some things like that are going to play a little bit of a factor. But Trevor Lawrence, sorry, buddy, not this week. I just couldn't in my right mind think about starting you against that Philadelphia defense. Not right now. Next up at the running back position, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You're going to go up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Good luck, buddy. It's that's another team right there that is just, we've seen them. Their defense is looking like they're going to carry that team for this season. Right now, obviously, again, there's still some games to play, but Tampa Bay is only giving up 79 rushing yards a game. They're only giving up 9 points per game. So that defense is doing everything it can to keep Tom Brady, upright as far as statistics and things like that. They're doing everything they can. Edwards-Helaire, not known as a power back, obviously, so he's not somebody who's going to punish that defensive front. Can make plays out of the backfield, and we do see that Andy likes to switch things up. So you have Jerick McKinnon, you have the rookie Isaiah Pacheco. So you have some players there that could definitely supplement a lot of what's going on right now. Kansas City took one on the chin. They lost to Indianapolis, and a lot of people already had the Colts maybe written off and the Chiefs in that Super Bowl discussion. I mean, yesterday he was ineffective. He had 7 carries, no yards, 1 touchdown. So I don't quite know how that happens. I guess he, was negative yardage there a little bit. On that level, that's something to be said. And Indianapolis has a decent defense, but to go up against these guys, team as a whole, I think they're going to struggle. Next up for me is going to be Mike Williams. Now, this was my call before hearing of the Jalen Guyton injury, but I'm still going to kind of go with it because now there is talk that Keenan Allen may be able to come back this week. Overall, going up against the Houston Texans, you say, seriously? Like, it's the Houston Texans. They stink. They're not as bad as people think. When it comes to giving up points to the wide receiver position, right now, they are actually right in the same ballpark as a team like the Philadelphia Eagles that has a great secondary. They're only giving about 20 points a game to the position, not per se one individual player. So if that's getting spread around, amongst everybody, and you have your Keenan Allen now back, you have Eckler out of the backfield, you have Gerald Everett has been a godsend for that offense as far as another receiving threat for that team. I think, and obviously Josh Palmer's starting to make some waves there too. So spreading the ball around, trying to make things happen against that defense. They will. Justin Herbert, the adrenaline was definitely working, and this week to keep them on the field, they lost. They did not look like the same team. So I think Mike Williams is definitely not going to be. You're probably not going to sit him unless you somehow are that stacked at wide receiver, or there's limitations on what you can actually start. But definitely more of a fade, I would say. Don't expect big Mike Williams numbers, so to speak, on that level. I don't think he's going to do it again for you this week. Beating a dead horse, Cole Kmet versus the New York Giants. Right now, they're only giving up. They're really not giving up much. I mean, obviously tonight we will see what happens. I just saw where Dalton Schultz will not be playing tonight, so they may have a little bit of a break at the tight end position. But as of right now, the New York Giants are giving up a whopping 2.9 points per game to the tight end position. In fantasy football, Cole Kmet hasn't really scored many points.
He doesn't even average that much.
Fantasy football. That's like, and I'm thinking, I think he went, 2 weeks without even making a play. And I think
the first 2 weeks, and no catches.
So I do think that a lot of that, and I go look, okay, it's like George Kittle's on that third page, of guys, obviously just getting back on the field last night. That game was brutal. Hunter Henry has not been like he was from last year when it comes to tight end. So right now he's there. I really do think a lot of it has to do with him staying at home for pass protection more than anything, trying to keep, again, that offense looks horrible. Justin Fields has not looked good. Again, the only bright spot really was Montgomery against the Packers and Herbert this past week. So Cole Kmet, and I'm one of the truthers that was there with you, Pat. I mean, hey, maybe things change, but right now it doesn't look good, and definitely at this point shouldn't even be rostered in the tight end world, unfortunately.
I think that I think the volume has to go up. I mean, you can't throw that few, amount of passes and have receiving options that are, viable for fantasy football. Like it's just they run the ball like 60. I think I saw it was like 64% of the time they're running the football. Like that's. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, and it's a great point. I mean, again, they're trying to defend. I guess defend Fields to some extent. Obviously, week 1 was that, monsoon bowl and everybody kind of chalks things off, but you're averaging 78 points a game passing. Like there's no way on God's green earth that you could even look, Darnell Mooney, everybody was high on him. Right now, he doesn't have a shot to be starting, let alone, you could cut him. Somebody will pick him up. Wait, you're averaging 78 yards a game, Pat. That's one player in virtually any other team. So to say that Cole Kmet is going to get it after Mooney, I think Equinemius St. Brown is leading the team right now in the receiving game. Like you can't, you're right. You can't function as an offense. So are you saying that your offensive line is that bad at pass protection? Are you saying your quarterback's that bad? Again, last year they didn't look this bad, even with Justin Fields. They were a young team. They had a nice game here or there, I think, but with things in their favor. But you looked at onward and upward, and to see that you're only averaging 78. I mean, the next team is Pittsburgh, and we talked about Trubisky, but at least they're somewhat respectable. Carolina, I'm sorry, is right there too. When it comes to that, like it's brutal. Like you look at these teams that the Giants obviously are yet to play. But 78 yards a game is unsustainable as an NFL offense. So obviously they must be looking for a number 1 draft pick for somebody. We'll see what that is. And finally, my defensive sit of the week. And Pat, you kind of had the other side of this just a little bit ago, talking about obviously how things are going to probably play out this week. But that for the Baltimore Ravens, they are really bad on defense. This is not your father's Ravens. There is no Ed Reed. There is no Ray Lewis. There is no, Jimmy Smith. Like there's nobody there that can really make anything happen for them right now on defense. It's their offense that is willing them to win. It's almost like if you took the Ravens and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and mashed the teams together, you'd have the greatest team in the history of football. But right now you can't do that. And this is real life. This is how things are going. You're looking at Baltimore. Not Baltimore. Let's touch with the Buffalo Bills. I mean, they're getting 441 yards a game, 30 points a game. I mean, they're doing it on the ground. They're doing it in the air. And we know how potent that offense is. That defense for said Baltimore Ravens, they're giving up 458 yards a game. That's a lot. Again, that's like 7 times the amount that they're passing in Chicago. They've already given up 1,000 passing yards, 353 a game. They're giving up 100 yards a game. 77 points. They're giving up 25 points a game. So all signs point to the Ravens being a bad football team. They're not. They're 2-1. They have an MVP candidate in soon-to-be free agent, Lamar Jackson, who is really playing himself into a contract that may be, jaw-dropping. And we keep saying that they're going to get even bigger, obviously. But this week, Baltimore Ravens, that defense going against that offense, this will be a shootout. I think both sides definitely, maybe have a little bit to be desired on the defensive front with the Bills' injuries and the way the Ravens are playing. But my God, if you even think, oh yeah, I'll give it a shot because maybe there's no way. Baltimore shouldn't even be rostered right now as a defense. It's a shame.
And so for my sits of the week, I am going to start at quarterback with Matthew Stafford versus the San Francisco 49ers. So far, the Rams have not looked nearly as good on either side of the ball this year as they did last year. And this week, they get a 49ers defense that has been lights out once again this season. San Francisco is one of only 2 teams that are giving up single-digit points per game to the quarterback position. Buffalo obviously being the only other one, but that's about to change when they face Lamar Jackson this week. The Rams lost both of their regular season games to the 49ers last year, and Stafford didn't have a really good game either of those matchups. He's also been fairly disappointing himself just through 3 games this year. He's thrown more interceptions than touchdown passes, 5 to 4. And with one of the lowest over-unders of all the games on the slate for week 4, I'm not really confident about players on either of these two teams scoring fantasy points. So for me, I'm just going to try to stay away from all my Rams and all my Niners, but especially Matthew Stafford, because I know he's one of those guys who, if you drafted him to, in your fantasy league, he's probably sort of your locked-in starter. But I think you could definitely go a better direction this week. My sit at the running back position is going to be Josh Jacobs versus Denver. Jacobs had a good week 3, a decent week 3, just under 15 PPR points. Thank God, too, because he was one of the lone bright spots for my starts this past week. But this week versus Denver, I could see him having a much tougher time. The Broncos are giving up just 10.9 PPR points per game to the entire running back position. And though I know, like I said last week, that Jacobs is pretty much the entire running back position for that team. But the Broncos have been winning games on the strength of their defense through the first 3 weeks. Their defense is second in points allowed, 6th in rushing yards allowed, and they have not given up a rushing touchdown at all this year. They may not be doing things on the offensive end that many people, including myself, thought they would be doing, but their defense is as good as advertised, and I think if their offense catches up at some point this season, look out. They do not look like a playoff contender right now, but their defense definitely does, and the Raiders have not looked great on offense. So combine those two things, and I am trying to avoid playing Josh Jacobs if I have the option to do so this week. My sit at wide receiver, I have some stats here, but I'm not honestly going to go through them because we've already kind of talked about the Bears passing offense, but I'm sitting Darnell Mooney this week. He's just been a complete disappointment. And until the Bears figure out that they're allowed to throw the ball forward in this day and age of football, I don't want any of their pass catching options. So again, sit Darnell Mooney. I'm not saying drop him because I think if the Bears start losing games, they're going to have to throw the ball. They're going to have to evolve their offense a little bit. So I do think that guys like Mooney and Kmet don't necessarily need to be dropped, but I think you need to see something from them first before you start them. And the Giants defense has been surprisingly good against pass catchers, against wide receivers, and against tight ends. So definitely not playing Mooney this week. My sit of the week at tight end is going to be Tyler Higbee versus San Francisco. Again, sticking with, I just realized I had the quarterback and the tight end from the Browns as my starts and the quarterback and the tight end from the Rams as my sits. It just dawned on me. But again, I kind of spoke a little bit about that game earlier, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse there. But the Niners and their outstanding linebackers are the best team versus the tight end position, giving up just 2.4 PPR points per game to the tight end position. And my sit at defense and special teams is going to be the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers have been a pretty good defense so far. They're not great, but they're decent. And the Cardinals haven't looked as good as we've seen them in the past on offense. That may tempt you to want to start Carolina versus the Cardinals this week, but Arizona has only turned the ball over once so far on offense, and Kyler Murray has only been sacked 5 times in 3 games. So for me, again, when you're looking at defenses, you want to go against teams that are prone to turn the ball over, prone to give up sacks, and generally prone to make mistakes. Arizona has not been able to move the ball, but it hasn't been because of turnovers or mistakes or sacks or anything like that. So even if they're not scoring a ton, they're not really giving the defense the ability to get a pick 6 or pick up 8 sacks or something like that in a game to where your defense is going to to really help you win a week. So I would avoid the Panthers this week and look for options elsewhere. All right, well, that seems like our entire episode. We got through that fairly quickly, which is good. We should be able to get this episode out pretty quickly.
Yeah, we're almost getting good at this.
It's like we've been doing it for 18 months or something.
Yeah, we're not on the levels of some of the giants in the industry, but we're having fun doing it, folks. The more time we find, we'll add certain certain segments maybe down the road if we start to get really good at this. Obviously it's a bit of a process. We both work full time. We're not crying about anything there, but at the same time, we do make it a point to try to get together every week on a Monday, get this stuff out to you again, for the sake of the Monday Night Football game, and we have a lot of fun doing it. Speaking of a lot of fun, one place that you definitely want to swing by if you're in the Tuckerton area, Mickey's Portugal Pub. They are a friend of the show. Again, I have yet to have the opportunity because I am not nearby. I know, Pat, you are a big fan. You want to tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, I might actually head over to Mickey's tonight and grab a beer, as a matter of fact. But on Sundays, they have just a football Sunday only special menu where you can order. It's a lot of like finger foods and apps. I know they do drink specials pretty much daily. If you're looking to order off of their regular menu, they are, they're more of a bar and grill type place. But I know my family loves Mickey's food. We order from there fairly regularly and get takeout, and we'll just sit home and eat it. So really good food. Like I said, great atmosphere, great people there. So if you are in the Tuckerton area, please make sure you stop by Mickey's, let them know that we sent you here at the 9 route, and enjoy, because it's definitely worth the stop. All right, before we head out, just want to throw our Twitter handles out there again real quick. We are at the 9 Route 1 and at Scott from Delco. If you're listening to this, go out and find us on Twitter. Scott is the king of the meme. He pretty much can find a meme that can pretty much display exactly the emotion that you're feeling at any point in time. It's a beauty and a skill that this man has. But find him on social media. Check out
taking other people's hard work. Yes.
Hey, but doing it correctly. I mean, some people use memes and you're like, that doesn't even make any sense. But you are skilled. You are a skilled meme stealer, I guess, whatever you want to call it. But and again, check out our website. We do work hard in the little bit of time that we have to keep that website up and running and keeping good information on there for you. So check that out at www.the9routeFFB.com. Anything else before? Are we actually rooting for the Cowboys to win so that the Eagles are the only 3-0 team in the division? I don't know if that's like, it feels wrong. Like being from New Jersey, like it feels wrong. But at the same time, I'm like,
to root against the New Jersey Giants. Yeah, I know.
I do it anyway. But I'm saying to root for the Cowboys in a game against the New Jersey Giants. Like,
it's not like last night where it was a total bum fight watching them two. And at the end of the day, you're kind of pulling for Denver only because if the Niners have a bad record, it helps conference wise and all that crap. Yeah, this is one where it's just like, you'd say, oh, maybe they could end in a tie. Like, actually, somehow that would probably help the Giants out down the road. Not that we're worried about them, but it's, you just don't want to see them. You don't want to see anybody get hurt, but you don't want to see those teams. You don't want to see them succeed by any stretch. And Dallas is 1-1. Giants are 2-0, the worst 2-0 team in football, looking to make that 3-0. But, Dallas always finds a way to smack them around a little bit. So I think after getting adjusted to the injury to Dak, Cooper Rush getting a little bit more under center and then trying to circle the wagons on offense, they might be legit. You're going against Danny Dimes. You never know what to expect out of him. He'll throw for 12 yards, but run for 112. Saquon looks like he might be back. It's still early in the season. If he stays healthy, obviously he definitely looks to have the Saquon of old, maybe in his body, which that team desperately needs. And again, we'll see what happens. But the Giants have a decent defense. They were pretty good last year. They definitely have a good coaching staff and a totally different mindset. But definitely want to watch it. And hopefully it was just, one of those ones where they come out and it just benefits us. Yeah, I guess you kind of have to lean Dallas slightly, unfortunately.
Oh, that's gross. That hurts.
Yeah.
It feels icky.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's let these people get back to their day, and let's get back to ours, and hopefully catch this football game tonight. And like you said, hopefully it's better than last night's game, because that was tough to stomach. But talking about a backup quarterback and a perennially terrible team. So who knows? It could be just as ugly, but we'll see.
We shall see. For Pat, this is Scott. Appreciate you all listening to us here at the 9 Route. We'll be back again real soon. Like and subscribe, please. And we will talk to you soon, folks. Take care. Peace.